how long is the electrical certificate valid for?
2 years.
2 years, okay. Where did the 2 years come from? So back in 2000, up till 2009, the regulation said the electrical certificate is freely transferable, which means you could buy a house and you could give that certificate to the buyer, and then he could give that certificate to the next buyer and the next one, and there was no time limit. Obviously, that's problematic. So they brought it down to 2 years to make it more reasonable. But does that mean that 2 years is a reasonable time for you to reuse a certificate? It is legal if the seller insists, but is it a good idea? And we're going to look at the reasons for that now. Okay. So the first thing we have here, subject to the provision of section 10.4 of the Act, that's the OSH Act, which we'll get to now, the user or lessor may not allow a change of ownership if the certificate is older than 2 years. So that's where it comes from. And then the question is, should you let a seller use a certificate that's nearly 2 years old? Just let's go back to a portion of that sale agreement, the electrical clause, and it says the seller warrants that as at date of occupation or transfer, whichever is earlier, there will have been no addition or alteration to the electrical installation. Now, guys selling a house, 2 years later, do you really think there's been no changes? Have they not taken down light fittings, put new lights up, replaced a plug or two, added something, done what they need to do to live there? But here's another point. So the seller sells, but he's still in the house for 3 months after the certificate's issued, and then the buyer moves in, and that buyer wants to reuse the certificate, and he's prepared to sign. He's made no changes. Can he sign that for the seller of the previous transaction? He can't. Now, what would happen if you purchased the property, or a buyer purchased the property, and there were 2 faulty plugs and the earth leakage is not working? And they call the electrician back, and he actually did it for the previous transfer, and it's 18 months later, or even the same. Yeah, it's 18 months ago from the previous time it was issued. Maintenance is not covered by the certificate. So that electrician is going to say, look, this is valid now. I mean, if we did an inspection now, we're going to fail it. But you can't come back to me after 18 months for a faulty plug. Okay, so let's look at why it's not a good idea. Should you let a seller use a certificate that's nearly 2